In early 2025, hundreds of indie authors, small business owners, and passionate fantasy readers were preparing for what was supposed to be one of the biggest community events in the BookTok world, the A Million Lives Book Festival. It would be a 2-day convention at the Baltimore Convention Center on May 2nd and 3rd, 2025. The festival would be a celebration of the romantasy genre and promised author panels, a vendor hall, swag bags, cosplay meetups, and a content creation room. Tickets were available in 3 tiers, with the most expensive package priced at $250, offering access to the grand finale, the epic, fantasy-themed Lavender romance ball. It was hyped up to be the perfect ending to a magical weekend. But as we've seen time and time again with Fyre Festival, DashCon, Rainforest 2015, and that Glasgow Willy Wonka chocolate experience, there's always someone convinced that they can pull off a massive event with zero actual event planning experience. And in 2025, we got the A Million Lives Book Festival, which became known as the Fyre Festival of BookTok. If there's one thing that the Million Lives Book Festival and all these other scammy events have taught us, it's that the internet is full of big promises and even bigger red flags. That's where today's sponsor, Private Internet Access, comes in. Whenever you're online on an unprotected device, you're actually constantly transmitting data out into the open. And that data can be viewed by internet providers, network admins, or anyone else who might want to exploit your private information. A VPN like Private Internet Access hides your IP address and encrypts your connection, keeping your data safe and your browsing private. It also lets you change your virtual location so you can stream shows, movies, sports, and other content from other countries on Netflix and all the major platforms, no matter where you actually are. Private Internet Access is one of the most trusted VPNs out there, with over 30 million downloads and a proven no-logs policy, verified in court and by a third-party audit from Deloitte. You can install it on pretty much anything: Windows, Mac OS, Android, iOS, Linux, and one subscription covers an unlimited number of devices. Plus, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 customer support, so it's totally risk-free. Even while researching this video, I fell down a major BookTok rabbit hole, and I'm not judging if you love romantic fantasy, but it's not my preferred genre, and I didn't want to start getting targeted ads, so I kept Private Internet Access on, and my algorithm stayed tailored to my interests. So scan the QR code or click my link in the description, piavpn.com/amglimpse for an 83% discount on Private Internet Access. That's just $2.03 a month and includes 4 extra months completely free. For those unfamiliar, BookTok in this case refers to the community of readers and authors mostly in the romantic fantasy genre, also known as romantasy. The genre's biggest titles like Throne of Glass and A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas and Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros have inspired a passionate online subculture. Most of the authors in the community are independent writers who rely heavily on social media to market directly to readers. So when the Million Lives Book Festival was announced, it seemed like a dream opportunity where up-and-coming indie authors could sell books, connect with new readers, and network with more experienced people in the industry. The romantasy genre had exploded in popularity in recent years, and with it came a wave of indie writers all trying to get noticed. Because the Million Lives Book Festival was a brand new event, it didn't have any huge headliners or big name authors attached. Newer authors saw this as a good chance to stand out and gain some exposure in the community, as they wouldn't get lost in the crowd like they might at larger conventions. But unfortunately, this dream would unravel fast. At the center of it all was Grace Marsceau. Marsceau was the event's organizer and operated under the business name Archer Fantasy Events, sometimes also called Archer Management. She described herself online as an advanced copy reader, event planner, and indie author supporter. She also self-published her own books under the pen name Grace Willows. She had previously organized a smaller themed ball called A Night in Terracin, inspired by Throne of Glass. That one, held at Baltimore's Peabody Library, seemed to go off without incident, though the venue, which is a popular wedding location, may have done most of the heavy lifting. According to an archive page on the Archer Management website, Grace may have also at one point offered talent management and marketing services. According to her Facebook profile, Marsceau's day job was in insurance. Archer Fantasy Events, aka Grace Marsceau, started hyping up the event from early 2024. On the event's official Facebook page, it was promised, quote, explore a vendor hall with authors from a wide range of genres, from fantasy and romance to mystery and dark romance. Engage in with other book lovers, attend insightful panels, and participate in our content creation room. The vast majority of the activity on the Facebook page were promotional posts from authors and vendors, not official updates from the event organizer. In order to plan how many books to bring with them to the convention, authors needed to know an estimate of how many people would be attending. Marsceau frequently reassured authors that attendance would be high and that the vendor hall would be bustling, writing in the Discord server that ticket sales were in the high 500s, low 600s. In total, 100 authors signed up, including more recognizable names in the community like Ali Shanti, Jonathan Hawker, and Callista Neath. Their involvement gave smaller authors the confidence to sign up as well. In February 2024, more notable and established authors were invited as featured authors and were offered perks like being put up in a room at the Hilton Hotel, a prime booth location, and even an appearance fee. Other authors paid extra to sponsor the event, which would come with added exposure and promotional benefits. Romance author Percy J said she paid $150 for an author table, plus another $250 to sponsor the event at the highest tier.
Peep the date! After Christmas of 2024, I reached out to Archer Fantasy Events to sponsor A Million Lives. I ended up picking the highest tier of sponsorship because I'm just like, $250? Why not? It's a good deal. So I was supposed to get my logo on the website, an author takeover day in the Facebook group, an author focus day with several posts about me and my books on social media, a medium window or floor decal, where those were supposed to go, I don't know, and my logo on the tote bag. Now, I have been to other events before where I've seen events do all of these things for other people. So I sent them all of my things, my headshots, my covers, my logo, all that stuff. And on January 20th, they received my $250. So if anyone wants to come out and say that I never actually paid for anything, and if you're confused, Book Lover was a free sponsorship tier. And by free, that just means if you bring swag, like stickers, bookmarks, art, whatever, people have done wax melts in the past, candles, those get put in the swag bags for the VIP attendees.
For most indie writers, attending the Million Lives Book Festival was not a small investment. There were the table fees, as well as the travel to Baltimore, accommodation, ordering signage and banners, and printing and shipping hundreds of copies of their books. Many had to take a day or two off work and spend a few $1,000s in total, but the risk was worth it. For indie authors, conventions are one of the most profitable ways to promote and sell their books. But there were red flags from the start. According to author Lara Buckheit, there were no contracts involved at all. To secure a spot, authors simply had to send Marsceau $150 via PayPal. There was no formal paperwork or signed agreements. Then there was the website. It was very basic and unprofessional looking, and even contained a typo, which is not exactly a good look for a book event. Even though the lineup now had around 120 authors and vendors, there was hardly any buzz around the event. There was no marketing campaign at all, no official ads anywhere. The official Archer Fantasy Events TikTok account, which is now deleted, was also very unprofessional. Instead of advertising any of the exciting talent and events at the festival, it mostly featured videos of Grace Marsceau herself lip-syncing to trending sounds. The emails that were sent by the event organizer were often poorly written with bad formatting, like they were typed out in a rush on a mobile phone. Again, not what you'd expect from a book convention. By the weeks leading up to the big weekend, featured authors still weren't sent promo materials, pre-order links, or any substantial information about what was going on. When authors reached out to Marsceau to ask how many attendees were expected so they could plan how much stock to bring, she'd still reply that it was in the high 500s. The authors had to just take her word for it, even though there didn't seem to be any hype to support that kind of turnout. The event's official Facebook page was quiet apart from attending authors and vendors self-promoting. The only posts in the lead-up were desperate last-minute offers for 40% off tickets. The disaster began 24 hours before the first day of the Million Lives Book Festival. Authors who had arrived in Baltimore received a last-minute email from Marsceau informing them that the accommodations they'd been promised at the Hilton Hotel, which was connected to the convention center, had fallen through. She claimed that the Hilton rep she'd been working with had suddenly stopped responding to her calls and emails, so she was unable to confirm the room block she'd reserved for featured authors and invited influencers. Her solution was to move everyone to the much less nice Days Inn across the street. Except that didn't go according to plan either. When authors arrived at the Days Inn to check in, staff told them that Marsceau's credit card had been declined. Marsceau explained that her identity had been stolen, that her accounts had been frozen, and that it was all just a big misunderstanding. She asked the authors to pay for their own rooms and said that she would reimburse them. Early on Friday morning, day one of the festival, dozens of indie authors, many of whom who had taken time off work and traveled across the country and even overseas, arrived at the Baltimore Convention Center, hauling heavy suitcases packed with books, banners, and merchandise. Immediately, it was just confusion. There was no signage anywhere, no registration desk, no volunteers or any staff from Archer Fantasy Events to guide anyone. Grace Marsceau was nowhere to be found. The venue's security staff ended up having to show everyone where to go. Marsceau later blamed the lack of signage on the convention center, claiming she wasn't allowed to post anything because other events were taking place in the same building. But anyone familiar with conventions would know that this is completely untrue. Once inside the hall, the problems only got worse. The layout of the tables didn't match the official map on the event's website. A security guard informed everyone that the original floor plan that Marsceau had submitted wasn't up to fire code, which meant everything had to be rearranged that morning. So now no one knew where their assigned tables were anymore. The featured author tables were not where they were supposed to be. It quickly turned into a first come first served situation, with authors grabbing any available table. There were no tablecloths, no branding, nothing but a bare concrete hall. The only decorations in the room were the displays and banners that the authors had brought along themselves. There were no wristbands and no badges, which are both very standard for conventions. Marsceau later explained that the badges had all arrived shattered and blamed the convention center for the damage, but she said they weren't needed anyway because she had apparently memorized every author and vendor's faces and knew who was supposed to be there. But without any badges or any form of identification, authors couldn't safely leave their tables unattended because technically, any member of the public could just wander in and out of the event as they pleased. Many vendors had been told that basic amenities like Wi-Fi, electricity, and refreshments would all be provided. However, Wi-Fi ended up costing each person an additional $80 a day. There was no water or snacks provided. For a tattoo artist and a vendor who spray painted book edges, neither had access to power because Marsceau had not paid the fee to use the convention center's electricity. Musicians who had been told that microphones and speakers would be provided found themselves performing acoustic sets on the floor because even chairs had not been arranged. Pretty much nothing you'd expect as a vendor at a convention was delivered. By mid-morning, the more seasoned authors knew that the event was going to be a total bust. They had been to enough book conventions to recognize when an organizer was in over their head and that they had sunk their money into an event built on empty promises. But for the freshly debuted authors, the realization came slower. Or maybe they were just in denial. They had been excited and hopeful. This was supposed to be their big opportunity to get their name out there. Instead, they were left in a half-empty hall with no new readers to connect with, and their only sales came from other authors who were just trying to support one another. When the doors finally opened on Friday 2nd of May, it was confirmation that the event was not going to be anywhere close to what it had been hyped up to be. Throughout the entire day, it was estimated that only 30 people trickled into the convention. It didn't take long for everyone to realize that the number of authors and vendors outnumbered the guests. The Friday attendees had been promised swag bags, another standard convention offering that was meant to be filled with goods donated by vendors. In exchange for donating items, vendors had been told their logos and branding would be featured in event materials, but none of those swag bags ever materialized. The event didn't even have any printed maps or schedules or anything to indicate that there was an actual convention on. Swag bags were definitely way too much to ask for. When she was asked about them, Marsceau blamed the convention center, saying that they had thrown out all the bags. It was another obvious lie. Online commenters with experience in event planning wrote, "That swag was not thrown away. I've helped organize events. Those donated items are at someone's house in boxes. I would be watching online for reselling." Another person commented, "As an event planner, the ticket pricing makes 0 cents for the events and access they promised. Sounds like the company was not knowledgeable about the hospitality industry or conference planning." That would turn out to be a massive understatement. The festival's website had advertised a content creation room, I guess a space where BookTok authors and influencers could shoot videos for their social media pages. You'd expect there to be some nice backgrounds or maybe props and lighting equipment to use, but in reality, the content creation room turned out to be nothing but an empty grey conference room. One commenter said it's giving extra time in the ball pit. If you know, you know. The event had also promised 2 days of scheduled panels, cosplay meetups, and competitions. But when the time came for these activities, it became clear that they were all just a fantasy too. Most of the panels had more panelists than actual audience members. Some of the rooms for panels were also completely empty. No tables, no chairs, no microphones. The panelists and the few audience members were all forced to sit on the floor. A panel on racial diversity only had 5 audience members and was moderated by a white guy who wasn't even an author or involved in the book world at all. He moderated the panel from the back of the room, reading questions off his phone that all sounded suspiciously AI generated. Halfway through the panel, he stepped out to take a phone call, then never returned. He turned out to be Grace Marceau's husband. After the train wreck that was day 1, many authors were trying to stay optimistic, hoping that a proper crowd would show up on Saturday, since the cheapest ticket tier only allowed access for 1 day. Maybe most of the 500 ticket holders had opted for a Saturday-only pass. Maybe. A few more people did walk through the doors on day 2, but by most estimates, there were still only about 100 attendees in total, and the number of vendors still outnumbered attendees. And because there were no badges, wristbands, or registration system, it was impossible to tell who had actually paid for a ticket or what tier they'd purchased. Not that it mattered anyway, because there were no perks and no amenities to separate one ticket type from another. The supposed content creation room was shut down on day 2 due to technical difficulties, which I'm not sure what that could mean, seeing as the room was completely empty. Another issue arose on day 2, which was the event's mixed messaging about how family-friendly it was. Some people had been told that the event would be kid-friendly and several attendees brought their young children. However, others had been told that it was an 18+ event and were given the green light to display their not safe for work books and merchandise. So that's a bit awkward. It was now Saturday evening and time for the Lavender Romance Ball, a fantasy-themed black tie party meant to be an epic finale to the weekend. A handful of attendees descended the escalators back into the same hall where the convention had been held, expecting it to have been transformed into a ballroom fully decked out in florals and looking straight out of a fairy tale. But instead, what they saw was just the convention hall with the big ceiling lights on, the floors and walls still totally bare. There was no music, and the only attempt to dress it up was with a few foam rose petals scattered on the folding tables. There was a cash bar and a platter of supermarket desserts available. Videos from attendees showed the handful of partygoers sitting or standing around awkwardly in their gowns and costumes. The vastness of the hall only emphasized just how few people turned up. Grace Marceau did attend the ball, walking around mingling, acting like nothing was wrong. There was apparently a DJ booked for the night, but according to Marceau, the DJ was hospitalized last minute and they couldn't get a replacement. One of the venue's security guards felt so sorry for everyone that he went home to get his own personal portable Bluetooth speaker, and guests took turns connecting their phones to play music. The people who stuck around tried to make the most of it. Everyone was trauma bonded at this point. It was at the ball that featured author Callista Neath confronted Grace Marceau, demanding that she apologize and issue refunds. As one TikTok commenter put it, it's called the fantasy ball because you have to fantasize the rest. The debacle naturally went viral on TikTok in the days after the event. Videos from authors, vendors, and attendees began flooding the app. Multi-part storytime videos left viewers at home shocked and amused by how badly organized the event was. The Million Lives Book Festival quickly got the new nickname, A Million Lies. For the indie authors that had sunk hundreds and thousands of dollars into the convention, they couldn't do anything but pack up their unsold books, dismantle their banners, and hope that Marceau would keep her word and issue refunds. It soon became obvious that Grace Marceau had no real experience in event management. It's not even clear whether her business, Archer Fantasy Events, was ever a properly registered entity. There had been literally zero advertising. Locals in the Baltimore book community left comments saying that they had not heard about the event coming to town.
Hey everybody, my name is Andrew. I am a self-published author living just north of Baltimore. And this event, A Million Lives Book Festival, or whatever the hell it's called, never once crossed my radar, and that's really kind of significant for a self-published author trying to go to any and all events he can to promote his first 2 fantasy books and fund the next 3. So had this festival come across my Google search anytime I search for anywhere to promote and sell books, I probably would have gone.
Marceau's marketing plan seemed to rely entirely on the authors themselves promoting the event on their own pages, meaning the people who had paid hundreds of dollars in fees to attend were also the ones doing the promo work for free. Many later expressed guilt about inadvertently encouraging their loyal readers to waste time and money on the event. In the aftermath, more revelations about just how shady Grace Marceau was came to light. Four Seasons Books, which is a reputable independent bookstore based in West Virginia, revealed that they had been approached to partner with the Million Lives Book Festival, but had declined after concerns about logistics. Despite that, Marsceau continued to use the bookstore's name in communications with authors to add credibility to the event. Then shortly before the festival, she informed everyone that the bookstore had dropped out at the last minute. The small bookstore that did appear at the convention turned out to be a table allegedly stocked with books Marsceau had personally bought off Amazon. Although Marsceau did post a low-effort apology video.
Hi everybody, I am wanting to issue a formal apology. I do understand that the ball tonight was not set up to standards. There were a lot of issues with getting set up and it was not set up well. I want to apologize. If you would like a refund, please contact me and I will issue a refund immediately. Thank you.
She didn't actually really take any accountability for anything. She kept trying to blame the Baltimore Convention Center, which is a major venue that regularly hosts much larger conventions without any problems. She blamed the missing swag bags, non-existent snacks and water, and the lack of signage on the convention center, claiming that her boxes had been thrown out and even suggested that the venue needed to apologize. The convention center later confirmed that they didn't know anything about the missing boxes and that putting up signage is definitely allowed. A few days later, Grace Marsceau sent out an email to authors and vendors. It was another apology and an attempt at an explanation. And in true Grace fashion, it was full of typos. In this email, she claimed, "I did not make any money off this event. I put thousands of dollars into this event. All author fees and ticket sales went directly to bills for the event. The author fee of $100 included the $40 charge of your table and $15 charge per chair, and everything on top of that went straight into the convention center costs. There were 603 tickets sold for this event with an attendance of 140. I do apologize for this because the ticket sales were there, but the attendance was clearly not." She was doubling down on her lie. If she really had sold 600 tickets, she would have had at least $30,000 to pay off all the associated expenses and reimburse people. She essentially blamed the poor attendance for the event's failure, and not the total lack of planning and organization. She then went on to promise refunds and compensations to authors by the end of May. When May 31st rolled around, authors received another email, this time from Archer Management, claiming that Marsceau had to be taken to the hospital that morning, and as a result, there would be a delay in issuing the refunds. No one bought it. Nobody ended up getting their refunds, apart from a few people who opened disputes with PayPal. By September, all of Archer Fantasy Events / Archer Management's social media pages were quietly deleted. For a lot of authors and vendors, it was a major financial loss, especially for newer writers whose day jobs barely covered travel costs to begin with. Established authors said that even at the smallest indie book events, they would usually be able to break even on table fees and parking. Nobody is meant to lose money attending these kind of conventions. To add insult to injury, Marsceau's company had another fantasy-themed ball scheduled for October 2025, but it was eventually cancelled. Some speculated that she was planning to use profits from the October event to pay off debts from the Million Lives Book Festival. According to online discussions, Marsceau could owe around $150,000 to the Baltimore Convention Center and the hotels. And that's on top of all the refunds. So was this an elaborate scam or just an instance of catastrophic incompetence? Comment below your thoughts. I honestly don't think her intention was to defraud anyone. I think she just majorly underestimated what it takes to run a convention, overpromised, panicked, and ended up telling bigger and bigger lies until everything fell apart. The only positive thing to come out of the Million Lives disaster is that it brought the indie book community closer. Authors and readers were able to meet in person and trauma bond over the experience. And in true BookTok fashion, these guys were able to make a bunch of videos about it and get some decent engagement out of it. Thank you so much to our paid supporters. Some Nerd You Don't Know, Matthew the Celt, Francis Sporon, Aero Skies, Cindy Chen, and K4S Silver. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Our goal is to cover scammer stories and other strange tales you may not have heard about before. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.